Welcome back to Weekend Live. Well, now it is time to discuss the week in US politics. I'm now joined live by Peter Mathews, Professor of Political Science from Cypress College via Skype from California. Peter, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Firstly, let's talk about, I guess, the dramatic fallout from the midterms. President Trump ordered Attorney General Jeff Sessions to resign. Was this a surprise? Because we know that he and Trump have certainly had a difficult relationship over the past 12 months.
It wasn't a surprise, but what was a surprise when it was so quickly, the day after the election, was amazing. We thought he'd wait for a few weeks so it looks better at least, but he was itching to do this, and he was going to do it because he wants to control the investigation, apparently, into possible Russian collusion with his campaign. And once he gets rid of Sessions, as he has, and replace him with Matthew Whitaker, a total loyalist who said in the past that the Mueller investigation is not right, it shouldn't be done, Whitaker has taken a very biased position, and Trump liked that. He wants Whitaker to block any kind of possible Mueller advancement in the investigation. It seems to us from the outside, anyway.
What does happen now with the investigation into alleged collusion between the Trump administration and Russia now that he's gone?
It really remains to be seen because the acting attorney general formally has the power to do a lot of things, like to cut back on the budget for the special counsel's budget. He has the right to approve certain research topics that the special counsel has and wants to do. It's a lot of control that he could exercise over Mr. Mueller. That may not go across very well with the Democrats in Congress and other people if he did that. And don't forget, there's the obstruction of justice possibility. That charge could be brought against President Trump if he does this too much, because it will seem that he's actually trying to block an investigation for nefarious purposes, for his own benefit. You know, he can fire any attorney general that he wants to, but if he does it for his own benefit, that's considered to be illegal, actually.
Is it interesting that Matt Whitaker is now going to oversee the probe by Special Counsel Robert Mueller? I understand that Whitaker in the past has been quite a critic of Mueller.
Yes, he has. He's been a very vociferous critic, outwardly a critic, and he was also the chief of staff for Sessions, but he took the position opposite to Sessions. Sessions said, I'm going to stay out of this because of a conflict of interest, and Sessions recused himself. Whitaker was ready and itching to get in on it and to actually control it. That's what Trump liked about him. And Whitaker was very open about his disdain for the Mueller investigation, his belief that it was actually something that should not be done. This is a very problematic position because we believe in rule of law in America. That means that the law should apply evenly and equally to everyone, including the president. And if it's seen that the president's interfering with the application of the law and the investigation by Mueller, instead of letting everything fall in place as it should, then it's seen as obstruction of justice and possibly even abuse of power. Two charges that were levied against President Nixon in an impeachment vote in the House Judiciary Committee before Nixon actually resigned. So history could repeat itself. I think Mr. Trump should be aware of that.
Let's talk now about the result of the midterms. Trump is claiming it was a terrific result given the Republicans consolidated their hold in the Senate, but the Democrats are claiming the House of Reps. So has Trump done well overall?
In a mediocre way, I would argue, because, yes, everyone expected the Republicans to hold on to the Senate, maybe even gain a seat or two, because of the way the maps are drawn. The smaller states where the Republicans are strong had a lot of people who could win over there for the Trump, and he campaigned hard in those smaller states, and he won many of those seats, and that gave him a few more seats in the Senate, but it didn't really enhance him in terms of winning the House. In fact, he lost the House decisively. There were 40 new seats gained, or close to 40 seats gained by the Democrats in the House. That's a sweep. That is a blue wave for the House, and that showed a lot of strength in the United States for the Democratic position and against the president, because don't forget, House seats are elected from districts that go out throughout the United States, and the House of Representatives actually reflects American public opinion much more clearly than the Senate does. In the Senate, you have different sizes of states and different opinions based on the size of the state and the rural-urban breakdown. In the House, it's very reflective of what the United States is thinking, a decisive repudiation of Trumponomics and Trumpism, in a sense, I think, with the way the House was taken over by the Democrats.
So what does the result then mean for Trump in terms of the next few years getting key policies through?
Major considerations here, because the House can actually block him in many ways in trying to get legislation, because both houses have to pass legislation before he could sign it. In this case, one house will block him on much of his legislation. They might work with him on infrastructure and a couple other issues, but they're going to block him on immigration. They're going to block him on deficits and he wants to cut more taxes and drive the deficit even further up. You put the U.S. more into debt, the House will block him on that. And don't forget they have subpoena power, and every single committee chairperson in the House is a Democrat now because the majority party gets to appoint the chairpersons. The chairpersons of committees are very powerful, and very powerful committees like Judiciary Committee and the Intelligence Committee in the House. They can really go after Mr. Trump's tax returns, for example, and other kinds of investigative items that they want, and really put him back on trying to get what he has to get done because he'll be playing a defensive action all the way through the next 2 years. It'll be very bad. It's actually a very bad scenario for the president, unfortunately for him. But many people in the United States think the country's headed in a better direction now.
In terms of the result, Donald Trump did lose support in key areas. Can you take us through that?
Yeah, he lost support with suburban women. It was remarkable because suburban, especially suburban white women, were strong supporters of the Republican president in 2016. This time he decisively lost their vote. Something like 60% of them voted against him. And the youth, young people, were tremendously high turnout voters this time. And the overall voter turnout went up, by the way, went from 36% turnout back in 2014 to 49% in 2018. It's a remarkable jump in overall turnout and interest in the elections. And those opposing the president were huge in number. There's 7 to 8% more people voted for the Democrats than for the Republicans. That was a rejection of the president in a sense. And then young people skyrocketed. The people 18 to 24 years old, 68% of them voted for the Democrats. This is a harbinger of things to come, I would argue. And in 2020, which is a general election year, it's a tremendous advantage because that's the year when more Democrats vote, more low-income people vote, more young people vote. It's going to be even a bigger movement toward the Democratic side, I believe, in 2020. It's quite interesting to watch the next couple of years.
Certainly going to be an interesting one to watch over the next few years. Peter Mathews, Professor of Political Science at Cypress College, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.